Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's episode of GitGud, a short live stream series and VODs to assist players in lower ranks to understand common mistakes they could be making and lower their chance of advancing. With me tonight we have Ultivian, Coffee, and Magicgnome. Welcome back. Coffee, we missed you last week in the support role.
Well, I don't play support anyway. So
You're
no
too
big-
busy
no
over in
biggie.
the fucking United States.
Oh
Just
no, I
potting it
got
up.
back midday that day, but my school's Thanksgiving that evening, so no chance of making it.
That's alright. We'll forgive you this time. You're here for the assassin role, which is the one you guys have all been creaming yourselves over, waiting in bated breath for the assassin role. The assassin role. Couple of things we're talking about tonight. We're going to start off with the types of assassins. So there are a few different types of assassins. It's not just all lumped into one big thing, which is why we've expected tonight's to take a little bit longer. But we'll go through those. First up, we've got the sustain assassin. So I'm talking heroes like Valor, Reyna, any other significant ones you guys would add to the list?
Gul'dan.
Yeah, so I guess sustain can go across like melee damage as well as mage damage because you can push into like things like Greymane as well, who can also go melee. Thrall's pretty consistent damage, but also things like Gul'dan, like Gnome said, also be very consistent damage. And
Yep.
some mage those.
Generally speaking, all of the all attackers are sustained, but it's not just them. Like as you said, Gul'dan's a good example of a sustain, even though he relies on spells to do damage.
Valor also does a fair bit of magic damage.
Exactly, it's not. It doesn't quite line up as easily as auto attack and spell damage, but broadly speaking, that works.
I mean, Magic, you mentioned Gul'dan just before, and everyone would consider Gul'dan as a mage, but you look at his abilities and the way he works, he doesn't do a lot of actual burst damage for a mage. He does a lot of sustained damage, though.
Well, that's why a lot of people go into the E rather than the Q. The Q doesn't particularly add all that much sustained damage, but the E adds a hell of a lot of burst damage onto your target. So that way you can still work as a burst mage after 16. But anytime before then, his Q is pretty much his entire damage, and it's all just sustained damage on a low cooldown. There's no point considering him in the same way as you would a Kel'Thuzad or a Kel'Thas that do that burst damage, because it's just constant sustained damage. Nazebo is the same way, even though he doesn't really do all that much sustained damage. And most of it's in the wall. It's still a sustained damage mage in the same aspect.
I mean, I suppose. Go on.
I was just going to say, so with that, talking about the sustained damage, the probably most important things would be your positioning and where you're always able to deal that sort of sustained damage. Your sort of like mana usage and like cooldown usage normally isn't too important on those heroes. You just got to make sure you're always positioned where you can hit something here, because you always are able to deal damage. So you got to make sure you have high, I guess the term for it would be DPS, so damage per second, to make sure you're consistently getting that damage out through good positioning.
Something that I got taught about a year ago now. I only just started putting it back into practice, but as a DPS, especially a sustained DPS, is not to worry too much about diving every hero you can. Even with someone like a Zeratul, where you have the capacity to dive, it's about hitting who you can and doing damage that you can safely. You can get a lot more value just pumping damage into the front line, the easiest targets to hit, draining the mana of your healer, rather than trying to overextend to try to hit those backline heroes. Correct me if I'm wrong. And
that's 100% true. I can add a little bit more to that, though.
Let's go.
Your health pool as a sustained damage doer is, generally speaking, the most important resource on the team. That always needs to be, even if it's not max, it needs to be as high as possible, because you're the one putting out the most damage over a long period of time. So you can technically go deeper, but you need to be aware that if you lose health faster than anyone else on your team, you've probably gone way too deep.
Yeah, generally speaking, also one of the more squishier heroes in the game as well, besides something like a Murky. The sustained damage dealers such as Reyna and Valor, very, very easy to kill. So, got to make sure your health doesn't dip.
Hunter
I
as
think
well
we'll
is
get
another
into it
one.
more a bit later, but just as like you said, you don't need to focus medic, focus morales, as they say. Don't have to focus either. But likewise, you don't necessarily need to avoid tank, focus tank, anything like that. It's not as simple as that, but we'll
If
get into
you
that more of that
also
later.
most of the people that you'll need to be careful of are the main tanks and the offlaners or the melee assassins. Those people with CC.
Mm.
If you can avoid them, or they've used their cooldowns and something like that, you can sometimes get aggressive. But you just always need to be aware. You need to have high health in the teamfight.
And the,
Agreed.
I guess next kind of DPS we have here is mages.
Yeah.
Talk about.
So we got the burst mages, such as your Jaina. You mentioned the KT and the KZ. Chromie. Who else you got? I mean, there are some normal AA heroes that can be sort of built into a burst mage as well, such as Valor Q build, stuff like that. There's a lot of different variations on the assassin role, so it's hard to just pinpoint one thing. But talking about mages, we're looking at burst mages where you've got high CDs, not as high as a lot of other heroes, but high in the fact that if you blow all of your cooldowns straight away, then you haven't got them for another, say, 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, for example, someone like Jaina, and any mages really, CDs are super important, like you mentioned. So, someone like Jaina, if you do your combo, normally you could be stuck for damage for like 6-7 seconds, where you're very vulnerable unless you're like you have icy veins later talent tiers. Which can also like lead to having CDs and positioning super important, that you always follow up on any kind of CC coming from your team, and that you're not vulnerable during, I guess, your downtime of your DPS.
Broadly speaking, mages have high cooldowns, but not exclusively. The notable exceptions would be Li Ming and, of course, the newly released Orphea, who has incredibly low cooldown on her poke ability.
I'd put her as a sustain mage from what I've seen.
She has insane blow up potential in the late game. It's not even funny.
Yeah,
Blizzard's not the
that
hero.
hero
That's just 'cause she's
she's
not
That
just
really
hero
wild.
is
balanced.
ridiculous. It's not.
Put an exclamation mark next to her and just leave it at that. Just
Yeah, like-
wild.
So we decided how will Blizz nerf it? Will they nerf it into sustain or burst?
Yeah. So the other thing to keep in mind, especially with mages specifically, because you've got Jaina and Kel'Thas, they have one specific skill that'll clear a wave almost instantly, and that's the same with nearly all mages. If you don't use that on the wave, it's going to cause a lot of problems, which I believe we'll be going over later when we talk about camp, so I won't go over it too much now. But you need to be aware of where you're using your cooldowns because of the high cooldowns as well.
Yeah, they're super valuable, right? So you got to spend them correctly, I guess.
Well, it goes back to something we mentioned last week on the support role in regards to mana conservation and not blowing everything on a minion wave. Like, yes, they've got an ability, one single skill that can pretty much clear a whole wave. With Kel'Thas, it's the Flame Strike. With Jaina, it's her Blizzard. But I've seen too many low-ranked players who'll go in, they'll Blizzard something, throw out their E, and then throw out a couple of Qs as well, and it's like, well, why are you wasting so much mana and all these cooldowns on a minion wave? It's okay to right-click minions.
Specifically for Jaina, Blizzard's enough to clear a wave, and if you use it on a hero, it's not being used on a wave, so you need to be aware of that. If you use one Blizzard on a wave and then harass the heroes with your other skills, that's probably the most effective way of using those spells. And same for Kel'Thas, you can DQW and defeat the whole wave.
And still have like your E follow-up or something.
Yeah, and then you've still got your E if they dive you or anything like that.
Yeah. Mages are probably out of the three groups the most susceptible to mana issues, because so much of their damage and poke is reliant on spending mana as opposed to just auto-attacking with someone like Reyna. You have to be careful that when you are using your mana, it is efficient, that you aren't just throwing it out there for the sake of it.
And then, as like a decent segue, so you've got the consistent damage dealers, where positioning is really important because you can always deal damage, and then you've got mages where positioning is important because once you've dealt your damage, you're very vulnerable. Oh my god!
Please don't
And
die.
then you've got I think melee DPS, where the most important thing would be, I'd say, your decision making and like instincts, because you got to play a lot faster normally because you're just like
Right
almost
there.
vulnerable all the time. So, and you also normally things are done very quick, such as Maev engages with Blink, Zeratul engages with Blink, things like Valyria engages with Stealth. You have a lot of like on the spot decision making where like consistent damage dealers will just be always being aware. Mages will be set up and execute, and then I feel melee DPS is like just gotta
Do it on the fly.
ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we might have jumped the gun a little bit there, but yeah, definitely the final type of assassin is for melee DPS. Things like for Thrall, things like Valyria, Zeratul, Butcher, and because they're melee, they definitely struggle in a head-on fight, unlike ranged DPS, because they have to get around the tank. So very often, VCO is looking to get a flank on you in some form.
You be very aware of vision around melee assassins on the other team and on your team, because they will be using that vision against you if they're on the other team. So your tanks should be scouting it, and the melee assassins should be trying to use bushes or even just walls that are blocking their vision in a specific area just to get that flank.
I feel like they can definitely be very like high risk, high reward if you go for an all in. Because like you're saying, they're melee. So if the other team's primarily ranged, you sort of just get like put into a bad position because you can never reach or you can never run away most of the time.
Yeah, similar to how mages are the most dependent on mana usage and cooldown usage, melee assassins are the assassins that most depend on when to and when not to engage, because generally speaking, when they commit to their all-in, they struggle to back out.
Yeah.
So
One
when
way.
you're looking in, you definitely want to be looking for something. You want a reason why you're going in, otherwise you're just gonna go in and feed.
Roll.
Roll feeders. Well, it's the same as with only a hero you need to be safe, but this is something that I mentioned before is you don't have to, as those melee heroes, always be going for the weaker targets. You have a better chance of getting that flank and getting in there, but again, you're gonna have to be safe about it. I'm trying to, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say. Is back to what I said is you need to be able to hit who you can and get as much value from who you can safely do damage to. I remember speaking to a Greymane main who would literally stay there in human form, just right-clicking the Muradin, even though the Muradin can easily just get out. But you put pressure on that Muradin, he's got low health. Yes, he can use his third wind, jump out, whatever, but that takes him out of the fight, and then you've got a chance of getting in on those switchy targets.
Yeah, he's more of the like. I guess it's
Range
beneficial
sustain?
for Greymane. I don't know. He's lucky because I guess you could call it like he's kitted in terms of he can be very good range sustain as well as melee like burst execute on a squishy. So he's one of the exceptions where it's like he can play. It's very versatile, I guess.
He also, especially in the late game, quite often has to go deep to get value because his health pool scales by 4.5%. I'm not sure how many people know that. But because of that, his health pool at the end of the game becomes one of the highest. With that high health pool, if he's in melee form with the armor as well, just DPSing them with that melee damage, really high damage, even if he dies, quite often your other damage on the team will get huge value if you've gone in at the right time.
Yeah, so melee heroes, well, you mentioned Greymane, and then also Butcher has 4.5% scaling, and other melees such as Thrall, for example, have access to their survivability options later in the game, which definitely encourages them to commit harder later on, as opposed to staying at range and poking or not engaging in the case of Butcher.
Maev gets armor as well, that's a good point. Like most melee heroes, even as assassins, will have a lot of armor so that they can stay in a little bit longer, but you really need to be careful of that engages.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you're unkillable. It just means if you play smart, you can survive. Obviously, it gives you tools to survive, not necessarily just let you just face tank. You will die.
And even though you might, when you go in and trade all your health to maybe like a Maev engage with a W on 3 or 4 of their heroes into Warden's Cage, that will most of the time absolutely destroy them, and you can 100% just sit there hitting them until you die as well. And you can like trade your health pool for theirs at the same time. But if you only get one person with that W and it's the wrong target, you just need to get out. So be really, really, really careful with how you trade stuff, especially in the late game when it's super important. One bad engage will cost you the game.
I guess with that we can go into maybe like positioning and team fighting now for just general assassins.
Yep.
What to look for, what not to look for. So my most important points are, so I guess maybe for anyone who watched last week, Shadow pointed out that he looks for like a 3-prong thing. His tanks, their tanks, and his own damage dealers. And then I guess for assassins, you could almost look for that, but it'd be more so your healer, your tank, and I mean maybe not necessarily their backline. Maybe more. Maybe like a 4-prong thing where you gotta watch for everyone. Honestly,
You do as a melee.
yeah, I was gonna say maybe you could like not watch for a tank, but like you don't want to get stunned. You definitely have to watch for everyone. I think maybe just being aware of where you're standing in relation to everyone's most important. You know what your abilities do. You know what their abilities do. You should know how to get value out of your abilities. So you just got to make sure you understand what you need to be doing, whether you're a burst mage or a sustain and putting damage on the tank, or like a diver and you're going for a flank because you can see your tanks, you can see their backline, and you're like, okay, I can get in here, I'll be safe, my support's just there. I think that's probably like super duper important. Everyone's positioning, not just your own.
Well, I can pull up Shadow's stream, that clip that we looked at last week in regard to his positioning. I mean, that team fight that we had, that second one that went on for a while, aside from me killing all of your video because I've gone and alt-tabbed it. But I've got that here if you wanted to have a look.
Sure.
Where's my YouTube link? There it is. So we're talking about positioning in team fights, right?
Yep.
Yep.
As an assassin. There are so many videos that I can use. That's so weird.
Well, I guess we can keep rambling then. So
Yeah,
not
go
only
right ahead.
like positioning, I feel is super important, but I don't know. I feel like team fighting is one of the hardest roles in terms of like being aware of everything that's going on, because like you also got to be aware of the enemy's abilities. So in terms of if the tank has his stun up, if their like support has their CC up to peel their backline, or if their backline has their escape up, such as like a Leeming Blink or a Valor Vault, you have to be just like very wary, and like split decision making, where I was saying is very instinctual, where if you see that ability used and you know you can kill them in that window, you instantly have to go for it, but otherwise you'll miss that window. That maybe is a good summary. It's all about understanding the windows of a team fight. Sometimes a lot of low ranked players won't know that they've actually made a mistake. They would normally feel like they did everything they could in the team fight, and it's more of a case they haven't been able to process enough of the information that they're seeing, like process it quick enough to to visualize the windows on how to win the team fight. I feel like that's normally the case with lower ranks. It's not necessarily you can't do it, you just actually don't see the window. You don't see it open and shut.
Well, when you're looking at this clip, last week we focused on the support and where Shadow was positioning and his targets and stuff like that. But we'll have a look at the assassins and how they're positioning as well, because even though they may not be the focus of the video.
From my perspective, actually, I'm the false
go for it, because you're the false dad.
Yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm looking to utilize my abilities as like a bit of a burst build in this one. I've gone like W build to try and just execute either the mage, like the Jaina, because I can win that 1v1, or the Ana. So most of the time I just sit there hovering, putting pressure on the Jaina and the Ana where she can't go ahead and kill my Gul'dan, and he's the one dealing the consistent damage on the top side of the fight. But, so see how I've come from the bottom to just try and burst Varian, I couldn't do it, and I'm just sitting back, I'm waiting for anyone to go. I try and separate to create a window topside, and yeah. Fortunately, we don't win that team fight, but I can say I did a lot. I did a lot of damage.
One thing to note, that's really good by this Gul'dan is that he's focusing 100% on just staying at the max range away from the Diablo while still hitting him.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's the kind of sustained damage we were talking about, like making sure that that is what you're doing. As long as you're getting damage on someone, you're doing enough most of the time. It's only once someone's hard engaged that you then, and everyone's used their CC and cooldowns, that you can then look for another target. But before then, you just hit whoever you can. And in this case, the Gul'dan's hitting the Diablo. That's all he should be doing. Trying to get any more than that would be way too greedy.
Yeah.
Especially in a situation where there's chokes, right? Understanding that Diablo can stun you up against structures, so he's staying in a long choke, so like he can't be pushed into a structure, and he's just getting his damage off. But there you go. That's what you're talking about the overstep, and he just gets breathed in the face. He's not in a position where he can get out, and he just dies.
Yeah, he was actually in range to just Q and E the Diablo about 2 frames before he died, and he just never used his skill. So that's 100% him getting greedy to try and hit maybe the Jaina or something behind the Diablo, instead of just hitting the Diablo. If he hits Diablo like 3 or 4 times, maybe the Sonya can kill him before Lightning Breath finishes. I seriously doubt in that instance everybody was too low, but still.
Yeah, they're all pretty low.
In some instances it will make a difference.
I mean,
this one, genuinely don't think it would have. But
going into positioning, I mean, we're talking about this is something that happens a lot as well in lower ranks, is people get greedy. And this is something that we saw from the Gul'dan in this clip here, where he got greedy. They got a much higher health in the last end of the fight there, before Shadow heals all of his team up. But they've got lower health. The enemy team have lower health, so they've gone and pushed in, but they pushed in too far, and they've put themselves out of position by doing so, which is where you see the Gul'dan coming up around the top and getting flame breath to death in the face.
You've also got to keep in mind what your healers can do. So Lily's sustained healing is reasonable, but it's not that much, whereas Shadow on his Ana has the highest single target healing in the game. If he's hitting the right target, it's very hard to kill them if he's not missing anything, which Shadow never does. It's amazing.
Feels good, man.
Yeah, he actually didn't miss a single one on an Ana when they're trying to juke both teams, so it's quite impressive that he can do it. Don't expect Anas to be able to do that. 100%, that's just Shadow.
Don't trust your Ana in here league.
Trust your Ana.
Don't
trust your Ana a little bit, but like if she needs to hit absolutely everything to heal you, you're probably not going to win your games.
Yeah, you're probably asking a bit too much.
Yeah. Even Shadow wouldn't want you to do that, even though he managed to pull it off here. I'm sure he makes mistakes too.
Everyone makes mistakes.
What we see there with the Gul'dan is, so for example, I stay with my same game plan where I'm just trying to burst out their lower style, like the lower side of the fight. I can't kill the tanks. I'm a burst mage, so I'm just trying to keep the bot side busy while Gul'dan deals with the top side. And then the overstep happens from Gul'dan. I feel like that's the case about not understanding the windows.
So I'll go back
where he was like, he saw low health bars. He probably looked at his abilities, was like, my abilities are up. I have mana. They're low health bars. It's happening. I can see it happening. I'm going to kill them all. And then just like didn't quite understand Fog of War. Diablo still had his ultimate. If you overstep, Lily can't quite save you. And he just dies.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the end of this clip here, where when after the lightning breath, or during the lightning breath, you've actually barrel rolled over the top of the capture point, the objective, and into the lightning breath. Is that?
Well, no one could chase me over it. It didn't matter if I got hit by the end of the lightning breath, because the E also still gives me a shield, and I did get a W shield from Diablo. It was just because because of Fog of War, I didn't know Bavarian went on the right. I didn't know how close he was. All I saw is he just went to the right. So I just put the building, the structure in between us, because he can't quite chase me over it. He might be able to get the E mid roll and do the meow thing, but I was just like, I don't know what's that way. I do know what's that way. I'll take a tick, but I'll live. That was scary.
Yes, that's just being aware of what vision you've got.
Yeah, like also remembering, I guess, where the enemy have positioned if they do go Fog of War. See, like, yeah, I gusted him here, and last I saw of him, he was bottom right of me. But I didn't know he mounted up and ran around the ice. I thought he would have come down back at me.
Yeah, fair call.
It's just like remembering positioning as well of the opponent and yourself. I still think the best way to like TLDR it is the window. Like I remembered the frame of the window I tried to create just then. That's why I ran up away from the Varian, because I put the corner of the window there. I tried to get the Diablo because he was low. Maybe I could save them with the breath, and that was straight through it. As soon as it was shutting, because Diablo killed 2, I remembered that there's a wall here and the window's over here. So then I had to jump back through that window.
Yeah.
So up that way instead of at the wall that I put there. Right? I don't know if that works for people, but that's how I would read it in my head.
No, that works. Well, I mean, with positioning, that comes down into play in team fights as well. Your targets that you're focusing. We've been talking about this pretty much the whole time anyway, but positioning and team fights go hand in hand because you need to keep an eye on your positioning and the enemy's positioning in team fights at the same time as trying to do as much damage safely as you can to those you can do damage to.
Yeah.
There's got to be an easier way to say that.
Unfortunately, nothing's so easy in this game.
Yeah, it's like MOBAs. MOBAs are really hard when you're trying to get higher. It's just because it's like, it's about being able to process as much information as you can see, where it's positions, abilities, health bars, your abilities, your positioning, teams, theirs, whatever, and trying to make judgment calls based on that. It's just a game of inches, and if you're able to make the right steps each time, you'll win. So it's definitely rather difficult and hard to explain simply. I feel like maybe because I understand the role more, I can only like explain it at a higher
level that you understand it at.
level, yeah. Rather than like make sure your team doesn't die from heals. Make sure you have your cleanser if they have a stun up or something.
That brings us to one of the most important parts of the game that nobody really truly understands, and frankly, it has an infinite skill cap because it's based on your understanding of the game and how comps work and all that, is what you should be doing on the map, I guess.
Yeah.
Would be the best way to explain it.
There it goes. Waves and camps. So probably the most important one. Wave camps or like structure pushing, fighting.
Pretty much what you need to be doing at what point in the game. I mean, with the reduced cooldown on camp timers from the start of the game and the ability to see a much greater time as to where the objective is going to be and how long till the objective is going to spawn, you find that a lot of higher ranked players or actually a lot of players regardless, you'll get camps really early on, and that's pretty normal for most games, right? To get the easy camps early on. Say for example Cursed Hollow, you pick them up, you try to time them a little bit around when the curse is spawning, depending on which lane it's in or close to. But
so
there is a lot of timing that goes into it.
Yeah, definitely. So
You
I was
don't
going to
need
say
to
with
get it
that,
straight away.
you can get it before the first objective, and the best way to play, I think I mentioned last week, was if you think you're better than your opponent, try and ask them as many questions as you can using your actions. So if you know you can get this easy, get back to lane, not miss any soak because someone will cover your lane, and then you can get ready to fight for this objective, and the easy will be pushing. That's a question you've asked them. What are they going to do about it? Who are they going to send to clear? Like, what's going to happen? So, as like an assassin, I personally feel you have the most power to put tempo in a game, like to control the tempo of a game, whether that be the wave clear, that be the camp clear, the hero kill if you're like a burst comp. Like, you just got to understand that you're the trigger for most comps. You may not be the barrel that aims it, you may not be the stock that supports it, but you're always the trigger. You're always the middle of something, whether that be they're distracting them while you're stealing a camp. You're playing with Fog of War and they're baiting them so you can get an execute on their backline. You're clearing waves so your whole team can rotate faster and you have tempo. You can get their camp and get your camp. And I feel like the biggest thing that a lot of people miss is it's okay to use your abilities on the waves and understand that unlike League or Dota, you rotate insanely fucking quick on a mount. So you just wave clear the wave and you mount up and you can do anything. You have like 20 seconds to do anything you want, whether that be go clear another wave, do a camp, go for a gank. And I feel like just a lot of times people just like, I need a gank, and they never clear waves, and then you'll get a solo Yana bot lane trying to clear the wave because she understands it needs to be soaked or something like that. I think especially with the point with that coming up, they're changing the XP to be less on structures, more on mercenary camps. So that point in itself is going to be even more important, like tempo-based compositions where you want to take a lot of camps, you want to rotate very fast, so you can do things in Fog of War. Basically, being in the lane as little time as possible is normally a really good idea at the moment, because you also play to Fog of War. So the enemy can't see you when you're not in a lane, basically, not clearing minions, they can't see you. You could be anywhere for all they know, and then play that to your advantage sometimes.
There's two different ways that I would suggest going about this sort of stuff. So it depends on your map more specifically than anything else, what you should be trying to do. So for example, I'm going to go to the two extremes because the other maps go various amounts in each way. Tomb of the Spider Queen, 100% is about wave clear in terms of the early game rotating between two lanes. If you are a Gul'dan on Tomb of the Spider Queen, you need to clear that mid lane and then go to the top lane because that's where they crash. Mid lane will crash first, then top lane will crash. You need to clear that mid lane and then rotate. And by doing that, the other three members of the team can do whatever the hell they want. 100%. They have free roam to either gank, disrupt them, camp, do whatever they want, and you've already soaked everything in both lanes. They do need to be rotating with you, so then you're safe. So don't just assume you can do it by yourself because you're not going to have vision. But if you start trying to harass the heroes, like most people do, unfortunately, instead of clearing the wave, then you're stuck with one person going to have to split off from the rest of your team and soak top, and then it's a 3v4 in whatever lane you're in, because the other team will be trying to clear the lane, will be clearing the lane and rotating.
I definitely agree that would be the most common thing, right? So for example, it actually starts when they're definitely not a very good player. They start right at the very beginning with the first wave. The first wave crashes, it's always it's the fastest wave on most maps, I think all maps. They clear the wave, and then they maybe spend another 12 seconds trying to auto-attack the tank that's just like kiting back and forth, or trying to dive a backline. That's because you're in mid, their turrets are right behind them, so you can't dive anyway. And you're level 1, so they'll just destroy you. And then all of a sudden, the next wave is crashing. And you're like, oh shit, okay. And then the enemy team like engage on you, because now your team has rotated to try and clear bot lane, and you're just sitting there trying to spurg out on meters, trying to attack the enemy heroes rather than playing tempo. If you cleared the wave first and they're clearing your wave, don't try and fight them. Just go clear the other wave. Then they have to mount up and rotate, and then you're already running back up to mid, and then maybe fight them and you stop them getting the second wave, right? There's a lot of things where you can get what you want, which is fighting the enemy team, because that's all anyone ever wants to do. It's very fun, but you just gotta be smarter about it. You just gotta be smarter about it. You just ask them one more question, as in you clear the next wave, and you're like, well, now I've cleared this one, what are you gonna do? And I'm fighting you. Like, just to be a little bit smarter about it, and you'll change your games drastically. The tempo of your games will become so much faster for yourself, and the opponents will probably never be able to keep up in lower tiers at all. You just clear like a madman and then fight.
I mean,
when it's right.
it's a massive point of contention, especially. I mean, we've had the game out, and this is something Quality just mentioned in chat as well. We've had the game out for 3 to 4 years now, and people still need to be told to soak a lane. It's ridiculous how important and how simple, and it's the most basicest of things. It's the first thing you learn when you're playing Heroes of the Storm. XP.
The other extreme though, so Tomb of the Spider Queen, that's the shortest rotation time. That's why I mentioned that first.
Yeah, that's right.
The other extreme is Cursed Hollow.
Yep.
Lanes are so far apart, you can't 4-man without missing at least one minion. Like, you're always going to miss a minion, probably 2 or 3 to be honest, because it's such a large distance between lanes. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't rotate. You always need to be clearing the wave and then doing something else in most instances. However, on Cursed Hollow specifically, as an assassin, because you're just having one person in each lane soaking, there's going to be 2 people that aren't needed there most of the time. Those 2 people, at least at the higher level, will always be camping. Just 100%. People just don't fight on Cursed Hollow, they just camp for pretty much the whole game
Isn't
until an
Cursor
objective
from
comes
that?
up. Yeah, it's. I mean, at the highest level, it's just like occasionally someone might try and push a lane and get an easy advantage.
It's
But
like-
other than that, you're just never fighting because you need to be camping to try and force them, asking them those questions. Like, what are you going to do? The objective's coming up, and now there's a bruiser and a siege pushing down 2 lanes. Are they going to lose 2 forts in order to try and contest this objective, or what are they going to do to counter this? Or vice versa, they might have done exactly the same thing, and then both sides have the same problem, which is where globals come in on that map. But even still, the assassins need to be aware that they're the ones with the damage to do the camp, or the damage to clear a lane and rotate. Even though it's not as common, very much there are heroes that can still do it and get a huge advantage by clearing a lane and rotating.
It doesn't only just like you're the trigger, right? Say someone points the barrel at the hard cam, who's the one who's gonna go pull the trigger, right? That's the assassin. And you don't only free yourself up to go get the fights you want, because like I said, I think I said this last week, every assassin player, we're all stupid and we all just want to fight people, right? But you just got to be a little bit smarter about it. So you don't only just free yourself up with these wave clears, you free up your whole team. Like the Muradin, who wants to just jump and stun this KT on the enemy team, is finally able to do it because he's not consistently clearing waves, because they respawn actually very quick in Heroes of the Storm, right? For example. And things like that, where it's just like your Ana is not trying to solo the wave, and then she can't come and heal you because you just got ganked in mid or something because she's bot lane, because no one else went bot lane to soak it. So it's definitely just the biggest thing, the absolute biggest thing is Heroes of the Storm rotations, just map control, minion control. I was gonna say mercenary control too. Like, team fighting is a very little part because of the group XP and how it works. It's not necessarily just about gold. So you can also rotate as a group and clear as a group just for speed and stuff like that, which is amazing.
I mean, this is another sort of point of contention that a lot of people in Hero League will yell and scream at you. It is okay to have a healer in the solo lane soaking during a downtime when there's a camp or something that's being got. It's okay to have a healer in the solo lane. Please tell me if I'm wrong, but so many people rage at having a healer soak a lane while an assassin's getting a camp.
So it's the same XP no matter who gets it. So in that aspect, the support's just as good as anyone else if the lane gets cleared and you've got the XP. However, I'm going to say Ana because we keep using her as an example. But Anna's got no form of wave clear whatsoever. There's no point her hitting the wave, basically. It's just like kind of pointless the majority of the time.
Body there for experience. That's all it is.
That's literally all it is. So the assassin that has the capacity to clear it needs to be doing something if she's not the one clearing it.
That's it. You're always going to be getting value out of your time. And then with that point, though, if the support is solo, that is the point of just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. So say you're playing like Twin Blades variant and you go on solo heal build and you're the assassin of the team and you go on solo boss.
Oh god.
And it takes like 2 minutes, right? Or a minute and a half. And that's a minute and a half you're not clearing waves or anything like that. Or your Grey main, you've gone straight for the easy camp as soon as it spawns. No one's bot lane because they thought you were going bot. Or you left your like medic solo bot lane, and then she just gets ganked and died, right? Just because you can doesn't mean you should sometimes, but it is also important on everyone else to understand that that assassin is that trigger, and they need to get that easy camp. So maybe the tank go down with medic also, and you just leave like a wave clearing mage mid or something like that.
You've also got to keep in mind what the other team's going to do. So sometimes the other team will be rotating and sometimes they won't. If they're going to be rotating and your morale's get ganked, then 100% something needs to be done. Maybe you need to stay and you can't camp. But if like that's okay too. Like if they're rotating and you need to be there to get that wave done, so then you don't lose the full wall for no reason whatsoever, then you need to stay, and it's just as simple as that. But if they rotate someone off to do a camp, you probably need to be doing a camp too. So it's just being aware of what you're capable of doing and what will get you the most value.
Yeah, I think maybe a good way to put it is to be less one-track minded. You're like, I'm Greymane, I need to get this easy camp no matter what, but they're not doing theirs, and they gank and kill your bot lane, and then get a wall for it, and you're like, well, I got the easy camp. Like,
Yeah.
maybe that's on the person who got ganked, who knows? But it's like, yeah, just a little less one-track mind, where it's like, you know what? If I just stay and clear this wave, they can't push, and then I'll go get the easy camp. And then it'll give me like a 5-second buffer where I can maybe kill one golem before they start pushing the wall or something like that. And then maybe I'll make it back in time and save the second turret. And it's not that great, but you get a little bit of value. Maybe late game it'll pay off with the siege actually killing some, like a fort. But yeah, just a little less one-track minded would be my big point in terms of getting better as an assassin. Just think that little bit more and be more understanding of your windows. It gets very instinctual at a higher level because there'll be a point where there's nothing else to understand. Like, I mean, you can always get better, but what I mean by, like, you know what every hero does, you know what you should be doing, and you can obviously see what the enemy team are doing, right? So you need to. That's when it gets instinctual, where you just make the calls based on what you've done previously. But I always say, like, go full throttle, do whatever you think is right. If it doesn't work, try and learn from it though. Like, always go 100%, but learn from it. Make a mistake, you make a mistake. Never be afraid to fail. Especially as an assassin. You feel like you can get in there in 1v3? Give it a fucking whirl. Get in there, try and 1v3. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it does. Maybe you're like, oh man, if I dodged that stun, I would have killed them all. And then it'll be on your mind next time you go in, you look, and then you'll be like, oh, you'll stop a sec and they'll miss the stun. They'll throw it because they thought you went in. And then you're like, oh shit, go time.
Like, at the same time, you can also look at that and go, I could have won this 1v3, but maybe I should have done that camp instead.
That's it. Maybe it wasn't worth it. If I didn't kill all three and I died, they get that boss and they end the game. Maybe I shouldn't try the 1v3 here. You know what I mean? Maybe it's just safer not to. But you don't know until you try.
Yeah, it's exactly
try
what
it and then you'll know.
Ulti said last week, is not just try it, learn from it. Whether you get better at it or understand what you did wrong or what you did right, and whatever you do, learn from it. You can keep, what he said was last week, he said keep smashing your head against the wall pretty much, keep trying the same thing, and eventually you'll get it down pat. But again, understand the timings as well. So just because you can 1v3 someone doesn't mean you should. Back to that point. But Coffee, you've remained oddly silent for about 45 minutes of this.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm just letting you guys have a little talk about all the camp timings.
Strong opinions.
Something you care. Yeah, something you have a lot of strong opinion on. I'm just like, the subject of time, just take the goddamn camp, guys.
Yeah.
Joke up, mate, big brain.
Oh man.
Clear the wave, rotate. Clear the wave, rotate. Easy win.
It's not really that difficult, and we'll
It's
wrap
2
it up
minutes
now
first, you
because
time to stay camp.
in pretty much 10 minutes from now, we're going to be jumping over to the Games of TV 1 channel, where we've got the finals for this week of the Spring Series, where these boys, Ulti and Coffee, are taking on Doubt's squad. Eggs Day versus multiple units. That'll be on Games TV 1 next, so we won't take too much of your time. We've got to get ready, and I've got to get ready as well because I'm doing the production for it. But yeah, the thing that I wanted to go over quickly before we wrap up was just dot points of what we've talked about as simply as possible. So we've talked about the types of assassins, so your sustain, your mage, your melee, and your flex and engages and all that sort of thing. So you guys understand the difference between the actual roles that the assassins have. Your positioning, making sure that you can pretty much, to sum it up in as simple as possible terms for people that aren't as highly skill capped as Ulti, hit who you can safely. Deal as much safe damage as you can. It's more important than trying to 1v3, trying to 1v5, trying to dive the Morales or focus the healer or anything like that. Do as much safe damage as you possibly can as an assassin. In team fights, it's pretty much the same thing. Wave and camps, the very simplest way to wrap that one up is soak the lane, clear the wave as quickly as possible, and rotate. Once you've cleared the wave, the quicker you clear the wave, the quicker you've got time to do other things, whether that's pushing into the enemy forts, whether it's taking a fight with the rest of your team, whether it's getting a camp. But the most important thing is to have that wave cleared and soak the XP.
That's it. You can
pretty simple.
always do what you want to do in a game, as in like I really want to kill this backline all game. But you just got to understand how to make that window, how to clear that wave, get them in a position where you can kill them and do it.
Exactly. We do have quick questions and answers, so if anyone does in the stream that are watching have any questions for these lovely lads, then please ask them now. I did see a comment more than a question from Ultimatrium. It isn't as obvious as in games such as League, because active gold makes people want to kill and soak minions. When they hear you don't need to last hit in HOTS, they just assume minions are useless.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big point, because HOTS is like the later MOBA to come into the scene, so a lot of people moving over are obviously coming from other MOBAs with backgrounds, and they're like, oh, you don't need the gold, or they understand that there's XP, they just, well, HOTS is about team fighting, it's its biggest, like, market, like, value point, I guess it's sale point, so they all just always just focus on that. It's just like, you just need to be smarter, honestly, it's all it is. Understand a little bit more and be a little bit smarter about what you do.
Yeah.
You can team fight a lot, just got to make sure you know how to team fight a lot with benefits.
What I found from lower league players, and for a while I used to be guilty of this as well, is that I guess I use the example of Regen Globes. In low levels, basically no one gets Regen Globes. Like, it does not happen, honestly, because they don't realize the value of them, they don't realize the importance of a sustain. But if they have a Regen Globe talent, like if it's an ETC with Prog Rock, if it's a Kelfast when they occasionally take a Mana Addict, they will get the globe every time. It's quite interesting to see how much the individual incentive for doing something makes people actually do it, even though you're still just doing it for the team. Like, you pick up the globe to heal the team, you're clearing the wave because you need the XP, but also you get a few season marksman stacks maybe. And then all of a sudden, you will see people clearing the wave. So I guess in a way it should be made clear the value of the Regen Globe, the value of the experience to lower league players, because where they do it a lot is heavily incentivized on what they personally gain from it, which is something like League does easily with gold, encouraging last hitting. There's not an obvious comparison to HOTS.
Dog is going wild.
Sorry, Eli just, my wife just got home, so Eli's going nuts in there. We might actually keep talking a little bit more if you guys had anything more you wanted to talk about in regard to the assassin.
Someone's asked a question on thoughts on Anna, on solo Anna with second support.
Oh,
I'm sure this is kind of a troll question, but at the same time, like,
I was spending like 5 minutes looking for the clip of Hiccup playing Anna, just trying to wave clear, and how it did not work. Unfortunately, could not pick it up from any of the Discords.
The important thing is just to get the XP and to be getting objectives on the map. So if you've got double support, frankly, the chances of someone like that would actually make a Gul'dan's wave clear and then rotation way more important, because he's the only one that can actually do it. You've probably got like a Valor or something that can wave clear and do a lot of damage in a fight.
Yeah.
Like 100% they need to be clearing the wave, and then you hopefully won't have that Anna solo. But if you've gone to do a camp, you're going to wind up double support soaking 2 lanes. Like, why not?
Sorry, Gono's just mentioned the tournament starts in 6 minutes. That would be correct, but I have just had a message from a couple of people pretty much saying that the team that you guys are going to be playing against is maybe going to have to forfeit.
Hog.
With
Enjoy
not enough
that
players.
one, admins.
So whether or not we can have an exhibition match or something like that in its place, or whether you want to see, I don't know, we haven't really got time to throw together in 5 minutes another team to play.
I mean, if they just need one player, I can just sub in for 1 game, like, whatever.
Well,
should be fine.
I think
This
we
is
can
just an
talk about
off-season
I
tournament.
think
But yeah, we'll do that off at another point.
yeah.
the admin should do that later.
So I don't know if that's because I've had messages from about 3 different people saying pretty much that the other team is forfeiting and you guys get the free win. Congratulations for winning the first week of the ANZ Games to Spring Series.
Thank you.
Congrats.
So yeah, these guys, hopefully will all be on the same team next week, is what I'm hearing. How did you
Yes,
find
please
getting
say.
back in? Oh, that's a good question. I'll ask a question. How are you guys finding getting back into a competitive sort of environment such as the Spring Series? Based on your games last night, what did you enjoy and how did you find it?
Honestly, we were just having fun.
Hmm.
Yeah, I miss playing comp. I haven't played comp in like a few months because, you know, minor region scheduling's poggers. But it was pretty good, honestly. I've missed like doing calls and stuff like that, actually thinking about the game, so I'm excited to get back into it more. So sad about the FF tonight, to be honest. I was looking forward to the match.
I know
Yeah.
that like Gondor was having fun playing Ragnaros, Jesmes was having fun taking Haymaker. Like, we were just having a good time, even though it's obviously competitive. More so
Magic
in here,
was having fun losing to you guys, so.
Helium,
Yeah.
not sure why he drafted Zul main tank.
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
told it was
that
Helium that did the
game.
draft that game. And I don't get it. Like, NMS sucks. Don't listen
Um,
to it. They think Orpheus bad.
Well, we've got I watched because we had it was you guys versus we left school for this, wasn't it? You guys had we
That,
left school for this between the Spider Queen and
and
Yeah, and they played Zul
they went Zul
they
main
played
tank.
Zul main. Don't do that.
Um, then
Especially on Hero League. Oh, God.
and
That
then you
brings up a
had-
good point.
Yeah, go.
Copying pro drafts, like 100%, quite often they've got an aim, but quite often they don't work. There's always one team that wins and always one that loses. You can look at them and go, sometimes it's not the best. Like, try and figure out what they're
Something Tempo Storm. Mistake.
try and figure out what they're trying to do if you really want to understand drafting. Like, they'll usually have something that they're aiming for in the draft for the map, but sometimes it just doesn't work. So don't copy it blindly.
I'm mad that did it.
Why does Magicgnome? This was a question that was asked by Quality at the very start of the stream, I believe. Why has Magicgnome? Why has Magicgnome run it down in my Hero League games?
That's just me playing properly, well, as properly as I can.
Well, I think that's pretty much it for this episode. We kind of went on a tangent at the end there, but this is pretty much what we do after we've gone off air anyway. We just talk about this sort of stuff, talk about the tournament, talk about players like Magicgnome running it down, or that godly charge that you did on me in that last Hero League game. That was ridiculous. Well done. I should have been more attentive to my positioning as an assassin.
Yeah, that's a case of it happens to everybody where you weren't quite aware of somebody that was out of vision. Like what Blank's talking about is I was playing Diablo and he was on Orphea, and I managed to charge him back into my fort over a gate, and that's just because I was out of vision and he didn't know where I was. I managed to charge him and just flip him over the gate. Like,
I mean,
be aware of vision.
In all fairness, based on my own for my own defense here, my entire team was there. It wasn't just me by myself. I wasn't out of position or anything like that. I was with my team, but
nobody's scared of the
no
bush.
one
but
knew
100%.
where Diablo was. So Diablo is in the bush, in the middle lane, hiding in that little wall thing, as we're pushing in as a 5-man up to their gate. And he's just come out of the bush, out of nowhere, slams me straight into their gates, flips me over, and now I'm dead. So it's not just about your positioning, because I think I had good positioning there where I was. I was with the team, I was behind the tank, but my issue as a solo player, as a player on my own, like looking at my own gameplay, was that I wasn't aware of where he was at that time. So even though I'm with my team, I felt safe, but I really wasn't.
I was off the map for a good minute and a half, and I was just sitting in that bush for a good 20 seconds while he was hitting my damage. I couldn't. I knew like he wasn't actually a threat to kill my team at that point, so I just sat in the bush waiting. Eventually, I got my opportunity, and he wound up behind my fort.
Yep.
He wasn't happy.
I was not a happy boy. I think I death procced my ult as well, which got 0 value. But that's pretty much it. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your time, guys. Thank you for joining us again on the show. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to next week, which we'll be talking about the solo lane role. Is Junkrat a solo laner? I don't know.
No.
I think that a lot of people think he is. We didn't bring him up in the assassin role.
He works in a
Assassin.
similar way to Gul'dan.
Yeah, he's a
in
sustained
a lot of
mage with a
aspects.
little bit of burst and a little bit of displacement. I was going to talk about the spring series, which we're going to be going into next. But we don't have a second team, so if you guys want to play with yourselves, play yourselves, that's fine. Thank you.
Way ahead of you.
But it will be back again next week, next Tuesday night, 7:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, to prevent that issue from happening again. Registrations will be open pretty much straight after this episode. I'll open the registrations and proc a link. Anything else you guys want to say before we wrap it up?
No? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us again. I'll see you guys next week. I
Yeah,
guess.
we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. We'll have this uploaded onto YouTube as a VOD very, very shortly. But until next time, we'll see you in the Nexus.
Blizzard nerf Orphea, please.
Yeah, Blizzard, please nerf Orphea. Please nerf Orphea.